I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 118 of House of Commons Standing Committee on Veteran Affairs. Conformément à l'article 108.2 du règlement et la motion adoptée par le comité.
Pursuant to Standing Order 108.2 and the motion adopted by the committee on Monday, January 29, 2024, the committee resumes its study of the experience of Aboriginal and Black veterans. Today's meeting is being held in hybrid format in accordance with the rules of procedure. And I'd like to remind everyone that all comments from members must be addressed to the chair. And since we are at the Veterans Committee, I'd like to wish a warm welcome to all the veterans here present and also those attending online and those listening live.
The witnesses are from Atlas Institute for Veterans and Families. We have with us Marianne Notariani, Deputy Chief Executive Officer and Executive Vice President, Knowledge Mobilization, Board of Directors, Clinical Council, University of Manitoba, Faculty of Law, and Mr. William Shedd, Board of Directors. Welcome. From the Last Post Fund, we have on by video conference, Mrs. Maria Antonia Trujillo, Project Coordinator, Indigenous Veteran Initiative. So welcome to all of you. Excuse me?
Oh. Bells have started ringing, Chair.
Yeah, okay. So like I said, we have a lot of votes in the House of Commons today. I know that we can vote with our phone, but I have to ask members of the committee if they would like to continue because we have witnesses, or if they want to stop and go back to the House of Commons and vote. Mr. Brian May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what if we can get unanimous consent, what I would like to propose is that we hear from witnesses. My app is currently working, but it gave me some trouble yesterday, so I'm a little nervous. You can't get on. So if we can maybe go for, we have witnesses here. I want to hear from them. We can hear their statements, and then we come back afterwards for questions. Well, we're at 28 minutes until the vote now. So, how many witness statements do we have? 3. Could we maybe compress and get them in 15 minutes, and then we can be out the door?
Okay, but the vote are in 25 minutes. So with 3 opening remarks, we'll have enough time to, instead of cut.
It's enough time to get over into our seats.
Yeah. Sir Tormey?
Sorry, just to be clear, we're going to hear from the witnesses and then...
We're going to stop. And yeah.
We're fine with that.
You'll need to be cutting people off.
With our witnesses, it depends. I will try. So first, I'd like to welcome one of our members at the committee, Mr. Scott Reed. Welcome. And we're going to start with the Atlas Institute for Veterans and Family. So I think that Mrs. Notariani, you're going to start, and you have 5 minutes for your opening remark. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, all, and thank you for the invitation to attend this important hearing on the experiences of Indigenous veterans and Black veterans. I'm Marianne Notariani, Deputy CEO at Atlas Institute for Veterans and Families. I recognize many of you are familiar with who you are, but just to recap, we were stood up a few years ago by Veterans Affairs Canada as an arm's-length organization to improve mental health and well-being of Canadian veterans and their families. We do this through conducting and funding research, developing resources to educate and inform, building capacity among mental health service providers, and convening stakeholders to reduce silos, share knowledge, and advance collaborative work. Relevant to this study, we take an intersectional approach across our work and strive to be inclusive of diverse veterans and families, including Indigenous veterans and Black and racialized veterans and their families. I wish to applaud this committee for your work on this file, as we too recognize this as a gap that's requiring attention. I'd like to highlight the Minority Mosaic study led by our clinical research team in partnership with the LGBT Purge Fund that explores how experiences of discrimination and oppression based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and gender impact mental health outcomes. It looks at how multiple interconnected identity factors interact and how the stress tied to these identities influences mental health. To inform some of our direction early on, we commissioned a research and knowledge gap analysis to identify research gaps and knowledge needs specific to PTSD and related mental health conditions. There was a significant gap in the research for specific veteran subpopulations such as women, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and notably gaps in research around treatment interventions for these groups. We've now embarked on a new priority setting process to inform organizational priorities for the next few years. 8 distinct priority areas have emerged. 2 of these areas of focus include underrepresented populations, including women, Indigenous, 2S LGBTQIA+, and racialized and disabled veterans, and equitable access and delivery of care for veterans and their families. My colleague, Gabrielle Dupuis, Director, Research Partnerships, will now discuss 2 initiatives relevant to your study.
Okay, thank you, Marianne, and thank you all for providing me with the honor of presenting, and perhaps by proxy, to share the messages that we've heard in our engagement with Indigenous veterans and their family members. It was brought to our attention quite early on in our mandate, the need for knowledge products that are specific to the unique experiences of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis veterans, as well as their families. In response, the Atlas Institute has initiated a project with the aim to co-develop these products in collaboration with the First Nation, Inuit, and Métis Advisory Council, co-led with 2 senior strategists. These senior strategists are Tim Malone, a Satu Dene First Nation veteran, as well as Shauna Mulligan, Métis PhD student in Indigenous Studies, CAF Reserve Corporal, retired. I'd like to mention that this work is a marathon, it is not a sprint. It has a critical aim of implementing meaningful engagement strategies, and this will be ongoing over the next several years. Now, as Marianne has noted, throughout our priority setting exercise, 2 of the 8 critical areas of focus were underrepresented populations and equitable access to care and treatment. In light of this, the Atlas Institute hosted a roundtable in October where we asked veterans and family members, policymakers, service providers, and other system-level players to give us a sense of what their experience of barriers, success factors, and possible solutions for change in relation to their experiences and understanding of the access to mental health care in rural and remote locations in Canada. What we learned from Indigenous veterans and their families from this roundtable falls into the following distinct themes. The first theme we heard was that the importance of culturally relevant care and models of healing. Many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis veterans find that accessing traditional ways of healing can support their mental health journeys. Community leaders have shared they'd like to see the adoption of policies that allow for traditional healing approaches within communities with the costs being covered. The second theme we saw is that trust is essential. As with many veterans, trust needs to be built and it needs to be earned. This is especially true for First Nation, Inuit, and Métis veterans, where there has been a mistrust in systems, including healthcare, because of histories of colonialism, systemic racism and discrimination, culturally insensitive care, and mistreatment. Lastly, the third theme we saw was regarding the provision of mental health care services. We've heard there's a need for clarity. Who's responsible for mental health coverage for Indigenous veterans and families on reserve? Now, although there are many other nuanced themes and recommendations that came from this roundtable, we felt these were the most pressing. There will be a full synthesis of this report of this roundtable early in the new year, and we'd be happy to share that with this committee. Thank you, and we would welcome any questions.
Thank you very much to both of you, Madame Notarianni et Madame Dupuis. Et maintenant, from Inspire, je vais inviter Monsieur.
And now from
Yvan
Inspire,
Guillaroc.
I'll invite Mr. Yvan Guillaroc for his presentation. Over to you for 5 minutes.
Monsieur William Shedd, please go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm going to I'm going to urge my colleague and shipmate, Yvan, to carry on. Go ahead.
Merci, Bill. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Yvan Guilarac. I'm Red River Métis and a citizen of the Manitoba Métis Federation. I'm a currently serving veteran, having joined the Royal Canadian Naval Reserve at the age of 16. I've served for almost 23 years in both the Royal Canadian Navy and the Royal Canadian Air Force throughout my career, and I'm currently a reservist holding the rank of Petty Officer First Class in His Majesty's Canadian ship Chippewa in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm also a lawyer and the clinical counsel in private law at the University of Manitoba Faculty of Law. My colleague Bill and I are appearing on behalf of Inspire, a federally registered charity with a vision to enrich Canada through Indigenous education and by inspiring achievement. Inspire's history is intertwined with the recognition and support of Indigenous veterans. In 1995, the Senate Committee on Aboriginal Veterans, co-chaired by the late Senator Len Marchand, recommended that the Government of Canada establish a scholarship and bursary program to commemorate Aboriginal veterans. Canada established the Aboriginal Veterans Scholarship Trust with a $1.1 million contribution, and Inspire was given the responsibility of administering this trust. Inspire was then tasked with investing the initial $1.1 million fund and distributing scholarships from the return on the investment capital of the fund, along with additional donations received. Inspire has successfully managed the trust and has awarded more than $1.3 million to more than 400 Indigenous learners to assist with their post-secondary studies. Many of those supported have written to Inspire to share that while they appreciated the financial support, receiving money from the trust was especially meaningful as they had either lived experiences in the military or had a family connection to a First Nation, Inuit, or Métis veteran. After taking responsibility for this trust, Inspire redirected its efforts to expanding its scholarship and bursary programs and initiating other complementary programs directed to assist and promote Indigenous education. Since 1996, Inspire has distributed nearly $250 million through 75,000 scholarships and bursaries. In 2023-2024 fiscal year alone, nearly $31 million was distributed through more than 8,300 scholarships and bursaries. I am one of the beneficiaries of this funding, having received Inspire bursaries throughout my undergraduate and my graduate degrees. I can truly say that I would not have been able to achieve the success that I have without the support of Inspire and the Canadian Armed Forces and its tuition reimbursement program. In addition to providing scholarships and bursaries to Indigenous learners across Canada, Inspire has also implemented programs and events to support Indigenous students and educators while promoting Indigenous excellence. The Rivers to Success program, for example, provides Indigenous students in high school, post-secondary, and those making their career transition after graduation access to supports including tutoring, mentorship, financial literacy, culture and language resources, resume writing, and interview preparation. The annual National Gathering for Indigenous Education provides a forum for educators to network, learn strategies for engaging with students, share best practices in the classroom, and examine emerging trends affecting Indigenous students in Canada. Each year, the Soaring Indigenous Youth Empowerment Gathering provides Indigenous high school students from across Canada opportunities to learn about career and post-secondary education options so that they can be inspired to complete their studies and make informed decisions about their future. And finally, the annual Inspire Awards honors First Nations, Inuit, and Métis individuals who exemplify Indigenous excellence and whose stories inspire, uplift, and educate Canadians about the tremendous contributions of Indigenous people in Canada, serving as role models to Indigenous youth. Inspire can provide these critical funding supports, impactful programs, and events because of our partnerships with Indigenous, private, and public sector supporters, including the Government of Canada. Again, we thank the committee for the opportunity to contribute to this important study of the experience of Indigenous veterans and Black veterans, and we're pleased to address any questions you may have. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Larocque. And Mr. Shedd would like to say something?
I don't think I have anything more to say from what I said on the visual network that we had 2 days ago, except thank you very much for this opportunity. Just an absolutely unique one. I should have done the first one in person.
Okay, it's different. Eh? Yeah, well, thank you so much. And for the last presentation, I'm going to invite the last Post Fund. Mrs. Trujillo, the floor is yours for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you for this invitation to speak. I'm speaking with you from Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, the traditional and unceded territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka, Mohawk, and Anishinaabe Algonquin peoples. I have been the project coordinator for the Indigenous Veterans Initiative at the Last Post Fund since the inception of the initiative in March of 2019. I will refer to the initiative as the IVI going forward. The IVI has been made possible by the generous funding of Veterans Affairs Canada, and we work to provide Indigenous veterans in an unmarked grave with a grave marker and a traditional name inscription when the traditional name is available. We will also go back retroactively to add a traditional name that may not have been added to grave markers at the Last Post Fund or Veterans Affairs previously placed. For new grave markers, we offer the family the choice of adding a culturally relevant symbol to the grave marker as well. We commissioned a Cree artist by the name of Jason Carter to design 7 symbols that can be used in perpetuity by the Last Post Fund for the Indigenous veterans' grave markers. And Carter provided us with symbols based on the 7 sacred teaching symbols. In the last 5 years, the IVI has placed over 270 grave markers for Indigenous veterans that were in unmarked graves throughout Canada. And we have provided grave markers in at least 6 distinct traditional languages, working as far north as the north of the Northwest Territories, placing a tombstone in Aklavik last year, to placing a grave marker as far east as Nova Scotia 2 years ago. We have worked in every province and territory so far, except for the Yukon and Newfoundland and Labrador. The IVI works closely with local communities in finding these unmarked graves, and we will either work directly with a department in the band office, or the band office will help us find a local community member that will help us search for the graves. These community members are either provided with an honorarium or are volunteers by choice. And so far, we have worked with 45 communities and 25 researchers. Having a dedicated IVI coordinator such as myself means that the grave markers for Indigenous veterans get processed quite quickly. Once the family returns the paperwork and the veteran service is confirmed, I'm then able to place an order for a marker quite quick. And finally, we celebrated the success of this initiative with the culmination of a short documentary film sponsored by the Bank of Montreal. In 2021, the Bank of Montreal approached us with a generous grant to further support the work the IVI was doing. And we used that to create a documentary. This documentary is currently being used as a visual aid to outreach to communities and to spread public awareness on the IVI. We had the pleasure of recently showcasing this documentary at the Canadian War Museum and had over 150 attendees, many of them being secondary school classes, as well as many registrants from the Canadian Transportation Agency. As such, a secondary effect of the IVI has been that it's an excellent tool to educate non-Indigenous Canada and the new generation on the contributions of Indigenous veterans in the Canadian Armed Forces, and also the importance of commemoration. So thank you again for inviting us to speak, and we're open to any questions.
Oh, thank you so much, Mrs. Trujillo. And like I said, because of vote, first of all, I have to say that by the time you go there, the members going to the House of Commons and coming back, it won't be enough time because we only have 1 hour with you today. But maybe that we can try to invite you for this study and to come back, or if not, you can always send, I don't know, notes to the clerk so we can share to all members and taking care of that for our report. But listen, guys, first of all, I'd like to say that for Monday, Mr. Tolmie would like to say something.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to move the motion that the Minister of Veterans Affairs appear before the committee for no fewer than 2 hours to consider the supplementary estimates B 2024 to 2025 for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025 on or before December 12th, 2024. My understanding is that the minister is available to meet. So.
Yeah, but
And that's it.
before discussing, so sorry to the witnesses, we have to discuss this little thing. I know that the minister, she's available only for next Monday for an hour, but it's up to the committee what they're gonna. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't
Mr.
have time to debate this, so hopefully this isn't a big deal, but normally the minister appears for an hour and then we have an hour with officials. If we're okay with that, we're okay with that. Let's go. And I have to pull
Yes.
I have to pull my consent because I have to be on the move. So
Okay, so, Mr. Tolmie is agree on that, but I'd like to confirm also on, by video conference, Miss Blenny, are you okay with that? Mr. Desilets, 1 heure avec la ministre et 1 heure avec les fonctionnaires lundi, parce que la
1
ministre-
hour with the minister and 1 hour with the senior officials Mondays, because the minister is available Monday. So
Just 1 second, Mr. Shedd, yes, quickly, please.
I know that you don't have time for questions, but
Yeah.
I would suggest that if you do have questions of any of us,
Yeah,
please send them via the clerk to us.
Okay.
And then we'll try to answer them as best we can.
perfect.
Thank you.
That's really great. But listen, guys, just before you leave, I'd like to have unanimous consent to adjourn the meeting because we won't have time when we're going to come back, and remind all of you that we have a meeting with Ukrainian delegation, room 410, right after the vote. Yes, here.
What?
Yeah.
I thought it was West Block.
No. It's here, 410. So, okay. So agreed?
Agreed.
Everyone? Perfect. So I'd like to, just before I close, I'd like to say thank you to all of you. Mrs. Notariani, thank you for coming. Madame Dupuis, Monsieur Larocque, and Mr. Shedd, thank you. And also Mrs. Trujillo. It was a pleasure to have you, and we'll stay in touch. Alors, je vous remercie. La
so
rencontre est
thank you
donc-
very much. The meeting is adjourned.